Welcome to Ficefilm. Today's video is all about the science fiction's action movie Spider-Man. Warning, this video contains spoilers. Enjoy! Peter Parker struggles to catch the bus to his school trip. He begs for the driver to stop the bus. Mary Jane Watson, his longtime crush, notices him and orders the driver to stop the bus to let Peter ride, which the driver immediately does. He apologizes for being late and his classmates tease and bully him as he was looking for a seat. When everyone arrives at Columbia University, their teacher runs down the do's and don'ts while on campus. The class is visiting Columbia University's science department, so the students are to behave accordingly. Mary Jane looks at the back and waves hi, which Peter assumes she is waving at him, but unfortunately she waves to her friends. Walking towards her, Peter walks with the crowd in dismay. As the group approaches the school, Harry Osborn arrives in a Rolls-Royce together with his dad Norman Osborn, a renowned scientist and the founder and owner of Oscorp, a multi-billion-dollar corporation which deals with experimental sciences, military research, and cross-species genetics. Harry hesitates to be dropped in front of the university as he is quite ashamed to arrive in a luxury car in a public school. His father tells him not to be ashamed of who he is. Harry disregards what his father told him and jumps out of the car. He calls Peter his best friend just as he was passing by and joins him. Norman calls out Harry, bringing his son's bag with him, telling him he left it in the car. Harry introduces his best friend to his dad. Norman then says he's heard a lot about Peter and that Harry says he is a science whiz. He tells Peter that he is something of a scientist himself. Peter replies that he read all his research about nanotechnology and commends this work, saying he even wrote a paper about it, to which Norman is impressed with. The three of them bid goodbye as a student calls him. Peter tells Harry that his dad is not that bad. Harry jokingly replies that he thinks his dad wants to adopt Peter. Inside the genetic laboratory, a lady scientist explains about the origin of spiders. They come across the Delina spider, which Peter asks permissions to take a photo of, but then dodged by his classmate at the back, falling to capture the spider. This happens a second time and Harry confronts the bullies, telling them to leave Peter alone. They backfire and tease him about his father's positions in Oscorp. Their instructor sees the commotions and threatens them about failing the course if they do not stop. Harry and Peter approach a certain species of spider, to which Peter says that some spiders change color to blend into their environment, saying it's a defense mechanism. Harry brushes him off and asks him why he needs to know a fact. Both of them see Mary Jane and push each other to go to talk to her. Harry decides to approach Mary Jane and tells him about the fact that Peter told him. As the lady scientist talks about the 15 genetically modified spiders, Mary Jane notices one is missing and informs her. As the student walks away, Peter offers to take a photograph of Mary Jane with the spiders, to which she agreed to. As Peter was taking the picture, the missing spider came down from the ceiling and bit his hand. In the Oscorp's laboratory, the board of directors are visiting to see the progress report on human performance enhancers. Norman is trying to secure a military contract with these enhancers. When asked about the progress, Dr. Mendel Storm, Norman's assistant, says that there were side effects in one trial, but Norman interrupts and says all tests have been successful. He says the entire staff certifies the success of the product and is ready for human testing. But Dr. Storm says otherwise and that the formula must be changed in order to prevent failures. The board says they only have 2 weeks for the human trials, and if they cannot accomplish it, the funding will be pulled and be given to their rival company. Norman insists on trying the human enhancers on himself even after Dr. Storm convinces him the formula are not ready yet. Due to the instability of the formula, he goes insane and violent and kills Dr. Storm. Peter arrives home from the school trip and falls ill, making his Aunt May and Uncle Ben worry about him. The next day, Peter wakes up and realizes he can see pretty well without his glasses. He also finds out at school he can shoot webs from his wrist, has developed superhuman strength, speed, and quick reflexes. His spider sense allows him to suspect danger coming. He catches Mary Jane in the school cafeteria when she was about to fall due to a spilled drink on the floor. He gets into a fight after accidentally webbing a tray and hitting his classmates' back, making everyone freaked out about him. When he comes home, he takes the trash out and coincidentally listens to Mary Jane's family arguing. Peter and Mary Jane have been neighbors since they were kids. Mary Jane comes out and they talk about what they want after college. Suddenly, Mary Jane's boyfriend Flash arrives with a new car. Mary Jane excitedly runs to it, making Peter want to impress her. Peter decides to join a wrestling match to buy the car. On the day of the match, he lies about going to the library and Uncle Ben insists on driving him in order to have a chance to talk to him about what he's up to these days. They talk and Peter brushes off his uncle's advice that with great power comes with great responsibility, then leaves. Peter eventually wins his first match and earns the name Spider-Man, but then gets scammed by the organizer. A robber enters the organizer's office, which Peter lets go as a payback. Moments later, he finds out about his Uncle Ben being killed in a carjacking incident. He catches the carjacker and to his dismay realizes it was the man he let escape. The carjacker flees but dies eventually. In the meantime, Norman crashes a military experiment by his rival corporations, the Quest Aerospace, and kills several people. Upon coming home from graduations, Peter lives to become the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man who fights crimes and helps people with his abilities. The Daily Bugle newspaper, led by the publisher J. Jonah Jameson, has been providing daily news reports about Spider-Man and hires Peter as a photographer since he's the only one who took clear images of Spider-Man. Peter meets Mary Jane at the street and finds out she has been working at a restaurant. She tells him not to say anything to her new boyfriend Harry. In a board meeting, Norman finds out that the board is dismissing him and plans to sell Oscorp Industries. On the Unity Day festival, Norman arrives and causes chaos, eventually killing the board members. Jameson then calls Norman the Green Goblin. Green Goblin convinces Peter to join him, but he refuses. Later on, Peter saves Mary Jane from 4 strangers harassing her. She thanked him for saving her and shared a kiss. Another incident happens which results in a confrontation between Green Goblin and Peter. They fight and Peter is wounded in his arms. At a Thanksgiving dinner, Norman, Harry, and Mary Jane were invited by Aunt May. During the dinner, Norman sees the wound and realizes Peter's identity. He decides to attack Aunt May in her house, causing her to be hospitalized, thinking this is his way of defeating Spider-Man. Mary Jane came to visit and comfort Peter, holding his hands. Harry sees this and thinks she has feelings for Peter. He tells his father that Peter loves Mary Jane, unknowingly revealing Spider-Man's biggest weakness. Green Goblin holds Mary Jane and a bus full of children hostage alongside a bridge. He lets Peter choose between them and drops Mary Jane and the children at the same time. He chooses to save both of them. Green Goblin takes hold of Peter and beats him brutally at an old building. Peter is injured badly and his mask was torn off. At the thought of how Green Goblin would kill Mary Jane, Peter regains his strength and gains the advantage. Norman reveals his identity and asks Peter for forgiveness, saying he was like a father to him, while preparing his glider to injure Peter from behind. Due to his spider sense, Peter swerves and avoids the glider, killing Norman instead. Before dying, Norman tells Peter not to tell Harry about his identity. Peter takes Norman's body back to the Osborns' house just as Harry walks in. He asks him what he has done. Believing Spider-Man killed his father, he takes the gun, but Spider-Man leaves immediately. At Norman's funeral, Harry swears he will make Spider-Man pay for being the one responsible for his father's death. He thanks Peter for being the only family he has, not knowing Peter's real identity. Peter realizes that no matter what he does and how hard he tries, it is the ones he loves who pays. Mary Jane confesses his love to Peter, but he hides his true feelings for her, thinking he might endanger her if she knew his identity. He tells her that they should just remain friends. As Peter walks away, he recalls and remembers Uncle Ben's words of advice and accepts his new responsibility as Spider-Man.